Missionary Nitz, please.
Good morning. My name is Paul Nitz. I've been a missionary in Malawi for 26 years. A couple years before that, I stood right here with my wife and got married. She's a daughter of your congregation. We've had a long relationship with St. Paul's and hold it dear to our hearts. In Malawi, before the pastor preaches or presents, a choir sings. It's always that way, and while Pastor Hoff has a nice voice, he's not a choir, so I brought a choir with me. This is the choir you'll see on the video from my home congregation, Crown of Life. This is the youth choir, and you'll see a young lady on the side, I think on the left. Her name is Cece. She's my pastor's daughter. She has a solo in this song, and one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard. They're singing a song I think they composed themselves. It's Chodabwitsa, Chisomo Chodabwitsa Chapurumutsa Ine, Amazing Grace That Has Saved Me. Listen.
Chisomo Chodabwitsa
Grace, mercy, and peace to you from God our Father and His Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, the ripple effect, the beauty God makes in nature is so amazing. You drop one little pebble in water and you get these beautiful concentric circles flowing out. The ripple effect. It happens in life too, doesn't it? One action creates another action, another, and it spreads out almost to infinity. The classic example of this is the scenario, if my grandparents had not met. If my grandparents had not, well, what about me? If my grandparents, Alma Pingle and Henry Nitz, had not met, they would not have had Paul Nitz, my father, and he would not have married Carol Nitz, and they would not have had 8 children, the last of whom was me. And I would not have met Susan Warner, the daughter of St. Paul's, Livonia. We would not have had 6 kids or 1 grandchild. The ripple effect of one marriage. It's just amazing. It's profound. But today I want to talk to you about the ripple effect of faith. Of faith. Faith's ripple effect is amazing and lasts to eternity. One pebble dropped in the water of faith of this world is our faith. We believe in Jesus Christ. We believe that He did it all. And that spreads out. We're not alone. God doesn't have a relationship just with God and us and that's it. No, He puts us in a community of believers. And so that faith spreads out to our faith community. And after that, we're not satisfied with our faith community, our church, or our fellow believers around us, happy to be saved and happy to have fellowship. No, it's centrifugal. It spreads out, and we want to draw others into this community. That's the ripple effect of faith. And that's what I want to encourage today. Faith's ripple effect. First of all, that first ripple, be strong in faith. And secondly, strengthen that second ripple, your faith community. And thirdly, share that faith with others. The ripple effect of faith. I want to talk about this in the context, in our context. Wells, Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod, and you being one congregation within that. Wells World Missions, and me representing the missions in Africa. In the context of St. Paul's, and in the context of Paul Nitz's family living in Malawi. I'm going to mix up together some information about Malawi and Africa missions, and also on this theme of faith ripple effect. First of all, let me give you some context. In 1993, I graduated from our seminary in Wisconsin, and we were asked, Susan and I, with our firstborn child, Henry, to move to Malawi, Africa, which we did in 1993. What's Malawi like? Well, Malawi is about the size of Pennsylvania, a smaller country within Africa. It's about 18 million people in the country, and I think at any given time, half of them are outside on the roads or outside their houses in other ways. Very unlike America. We drove from Wisconsin to Michigan a few days ago, and I think I saw 3 people on the roads. When I drive from my house to my children's school 15 minutes away, I think we see 4,000 or 5,000 people alongside the roads. You'd notice that right away. Malawi is also one of the poorest nations in the world, but that doesn't mean that everyone is miserable and unhappy. Kids play, albeit with some simple toys. Moms cook food, dads go to work. Outside of the cities, most of those would be farmers. If you look closely at the faces in Malawi, you won't see the same sort of stress or anger lines that you do in other countries. They're very friendly looking and smiley, and part of that is their culture of just getting on with life and not worrying about the future. And part of that is their culture's value of getting along and being at peace with one another. Very high value that they have. And that brings up one very big difference of living in Malawi, and that's the cultural difference. Now, we've been there a long time, and you would think I would be some sort of expert on the culture there, but every year I think I find out how little I know and understand. But I'll try to give you a taste in one area of the culture and how different it is. I was having a workshop with some Malawian pastors, and the topic was hospitality. One of the Malawian pastors was presenting during this workshop, and he gave us a scenario. He gave us sort of a discussion question. He said, imagine there is a pastor, and it's evening, he's sitting down with his family and having a meal, and along comes a visitor. The visitor doesn't knock. Now in Malawi you don't knock, you say, Odi, Odi, which roughly translated means knock, knock. The visitor comes along and says, Odi, and the pastor goes to the door and says, oh, hello, my member. I'm sorry, I am eating with my family right now. I'll talk to you later. Then the visitor goes away. So this pastor presented this scenario to the rest of us pastors in the workshop, and he said, so what do we think about that Lutheran pastor? And then he answered it right away. He didn't let us discuss. And he said, he is not a Christian, he is evil, and he is a murderer. Kind of surprising answer. It was to me. I knew you had to invite someone in if they came at mealtime. I didn't know how serious it was. This is a whole system of social welfare that their culture has. If you come to the door at mealtime, it's because you need food. So we discussed it further and I found out from another pastor, every day out of a month before harvest, he might have a visitor at his house at mealtime, and he must. give him a meal. Very different from our culture, or the traditional American culture I grew up with anyway. Culture is very different in Malawi. To be Malawian means to be a part of a community, to be sharing with one another. They share joys, they share sorrows very deeply. They share troubles and blessings generously. I'm not saying that we Americans don't do these things, but I think Malawian culture really takes it to another level. You might ask, well, what is it like to live there for you, for we the Nitzes? And we're fine. We have a good house, we have a car, we have a good school for our kids, an international school. We complain sometimes about how things work or don't work in the country. Long lines or crazy drivers or electrical outages. But it's good. It's a good climate. And it's friendly people. It's a peaceful nation. There have been some challenges, of course, and I think God challenges every one of us right up to our level in order to strengthen us. So I'm not going to say that our challenges in Malawi have been any different or harder, or I should say any harder than yours, but maybe different because of being in a foreign country. Because of that tropical climate, you get some kind of strange sicknesses like malaria. Several of us have had that very badly. I once had a bad blood poisoning kind of thing from a spider bite. And our son Joel, he had meningitis once and had to be flown to a foreign country. But really more than like physical things or sicknesses, I think emotional challenges is difficult. That Malawian sense of community, that doesn't necessarily include the Nitzes, you know. We are still foreigners. We've adjusted to Malawi, but Malawi has never adjusted to us, and we can't expect it to. And that can be a challenge to just always be an outsider. And then spiritual challenges there too for us. Pastors and missionaries are not exempt from these things, right? In fact, maybe Satan tempts us more. You have challenges from within you and around you, Satan working against you. In one particularly difficult time, we had 5 months of accusations and suspicions against us, directed against us by our own faith community. Easily the most difficult time of my life. Well, what do? You have them, I have them, all these physical and emotional and spiritual challenges. How does a person survive? There's really only one way to survive and thrive, and that is in the Lord. And that's how we have done it for these years in Malawi. The Lord has been the one who strengthens us. We can claim no heroism from staying there and working there all these times. The Lord has been with us and helped us through all these things. And when we look to the future, we're seeing some pretty big challenges just ahead of us in our family. And, you know, we want to meet that with the confidence and that peace that we know we are a son of God, a child of God, that we have been saved, and we have heaven in our pocket because of Jesus Christ. Spiritually, we're here, but with the challenges ahead, we want to be here. And so what do? We invest in the Word, we work with one another in the family, and that's what we all do, right? We know as Christians to sit still is actually to retreat. And we know that we need to rely on the Lord and become strong in the Lord. And that not only has benefit for me and my family, for you and your family, that does what? It spreads out. That faith and that confidence, that peace, it draws others in. That ripple effect spreads out to our faith communities. You have a faith community, and you have a lovely one here at St. Paul's. Trust me, we've really enjoyed your faith community for many years. I know we haven't visited often back here, but I still think of St. Paul's as my home church. It's a wonderful community, and yet we can always improve it and strengthen it, right? And if we don't work on that, we start to lose it. So I'm encouraging you, strengthen your faith community. Don't take this for granted, but work at it. The primary faith community any one of us belongs to is like a congregation like this. But there are others. There are other faith communities, such as a Bible study group or a ladies group, maybe some Christian friends. What do we have in Malawi, we the Nitzes? Well, we have a congregation like yours, Crown of Life. There's about 70 people who come to church on a Sunday. We have hymns and liturgies, and very similar to what you might have here in a lot of ways. The choirs, if they sing, will almost always be in Chichewa or another Bantu language, but our liturgy and our hymns are in English in town. Most of the other congregations, 137 congregations in Malawi, they would be worshiping in Chichewa. Like almost any congregation, I think every congregation in Malawi, we have a ladies group. And they often have a uniform like that with the white and the purple skirt and so on. It's the Lutheran colors. If you're Catholic, then you have a white shirt and I think a black skirt, and another church will have a different uniform. And the ladies of the congregation, they'll get together once a week during the week. They'll maybe study the Bible together, pray together. They'll often practice a song, singing a song together, often composing a song that they will sing at one of the special services, such as a communion service. After they meet, then they'll go out and encourage maybe the sick or the poor, take a gift to them. I thought you might like to hear our ladies choir, so I have a little video clip here of our ladies choir at Crown of Life singing at a communion study Sunday, maybe about 2 months ago. I wish I could give you the feel of that. That volume would have to be doubled, and you have to just feel it right in your body vibrating. When those women sing, it's really loud and right there. Sometimes my children will close their ears, it's so loud. They can really sing loud. That song was about, even if we are sinners, God will hear us. And I'm pretty sure they composed it themselves. So we have that faith community in Malawi. We have other faith communities we the Nitzes enjoy, such as our Bible study group or other missionaries just like you. For us, we have our fellow missionaries and their children, and that's been a great blessing over the years, a gift from God, a faith community that has supported us and been there for us in many trials. And we have been able to be there for other people too. I asked one of my kids, Joel, and one of my neighbors, my missionary kids, a daughter, Heather Holtz, to comment on this and taped a little video for you to listen to.
My name is Joel. I'm currently going to Bishop Mackenzie International School in Malawi. I've gone there my whole life.
My name's Heather. I graduated from Bishop Mackenzie International School. Been there for 8 years, and now I'm going to Wisconsin Lutheran College. I've been going for 3 years. We're not biologically related that we know of. Maybe in the past German ancestors, but we consider ourselves family, basically, just because of how close we are and living close to each other as neighbors, being missionary kids. Yeah.
We've gone to secular schools all our lives, so we're around people who don't believe in God or believe in other religions. So it's really great to have role models in other people's family.
We obviously are part of the same mission, so we believe the same things as part of the Wells. We go to church together, we have devotions, we have bigger missionary gatherings during Easter, Christmas, and we just feel so comfortable with our talking about our faith with each other. Being with each other all the time has given us like a safe place to grow our faith.
I hope you can see how we have valued our faith communities. That's just a vital part of being a Christian. You can't just stand on your own. This isn't a matter of you and God. This is you and God and believers around you. I can't emphasize how important I think that is. I can't emphasize that too much. It's been so important in our families, and part of our faith community is you. It's our fellow believers back here in America. I think that when we have that faith community, when we have peace with God and we're with others who have that peace and can strengthen one another, we're in a really good place. And it's a great blessing from God that we need to thank God for and strengthen. Value and strengthen your faith community. Now, how can you do that? I have a couple of thoughts for you. First of all, face up to how hard this life is. Stress and sorrows and trials, that tends to bring out the best in a community. When everything is going fine, then we all tend to be kind of individualistic and worry about ourselves, right? But when there's a great stress, when there's an attack, we tend to come together. Well, realize that this life is very hard. We ourselves are broken by sin and living in a broken world. We are in an epic battle with Satan. He is right there working against us. We need each other. Face up to how hard life is, and I think you'll value your faith community better. Also, recognize what you have to offer. Susan and I come back every 2 years, right? So we kind of get this strobe light effect on seeing culture. We see the changes. We see changes over 2 years. I think what I've seen is that we have more and more to offer in this modern age where everything happens in your house or on your screen. People are so lonely. They are desperate for human connection. And we have that on offer. And we have that on offer based on a connection in Jesus Christ. What better thing could people want? And also, share with one another. So start within your group right now. That takes bravery. You know, it takes allowing other people into your life. It takes patience and forgiveness when someone says something to you that maybe they feel is encouraging and you take as judgmental. It takes allowing other people to help you with your children or your parents or with your life. It takes being vulnerable and sharing your faith with one another. It's difficult, but the rewards are wonderful, and it's a blessing from God right here waiting for you to take advantage of. And I know you do, but I'm encouraging you to do that all the more. Working on our faith community has benefits for our faith and benefits for the faith of those around us, and then it has benefits beyond that. I think when we have a strong faith community, then, and maybe only then, is when we should start talking about and be really genuine about spreading that faith out to others, drawing others into our fold. And that's my final point here is, first of all, you have be strong in faith, you and God. Secondly, strengthen your faith community. And then finally, what? Share that faith with others. I think everyone in this room is unsatisfied, dissatisfied in a good, healthy way. We have something good from God, and we have each other. But we want others to have that. We would feel selfish if we just left it at that. And so we want to draw others into this fold. We are saved. We have believers who support us. And that's such a comfort, but we want that community to grow. I want to tell you about one of my students. I teach at a ministerial school. I want to tell you about one of my students and his story of dissatisfaction. Mr. Edward Msada. Mr. Edward. He, delightful young man. He comes from a village called Kasungu. And there he had belonged to a very large Christian church. Very large Christian church his whole life. So big that this church had 200 churches underneath it. And it's well-respected, large church. Well, one day, Mr. Edwards' cousin, who belonged to one of our Lutheran churches, invited him to come see what the Lutherans were like. Now, this Lutheran church, not a big, respectable church. No, there's a small church with a little building, about 15 people in worship on a Sunday. And they didn't even have a pastor. I think maybe a pastor would show up there every 3 months, because we have 130 plus congregations. We only have 40 pastors. And they have a vacancy. So, but there was a faithful layman there. Mr. Chipewa. Well, Mr. Edward went to our Lutheran church, and Mr. Chipewa shared the gospel with him. He had never heard it before. He changed over to our Lutheran church. I said to him, I was talking to him not long before I came here to America a month ago, and I said, well, why did you leave that Christian church? Oh, it was just about rules, he said. We never heard about Jesus Christ. They had their own rules. They had some Old Testament rules. I said, what kind of rules? Well, you have to give 100 kwacha. Kwacha is the money there. You have to give 100 kwacha every Sunday. And if you don't, then you're excommunicated. You're thrown out of the church. And many other rules. So he came to the Lutheran church. He heard the gospel. He hadn't been saved. And he heard the gospel, and now he's saved. So is he satisfied? No. No, he went to his father-in-law, and he talked to him. He used this little book. It's a lovely little book. You guys should all get one. What the Bible and Lutherans teach. It's just a little tiny book. It's a great review of doctrine and truth. Except for, actually, he used this book. It's in Chichewa. Zintu zome buku loyera di maluthren ama punzitza. He took that book and he went to his father-in-law, who was a lifelong Muslim. And he said, yes, I battled with my father-in-law with this book. And eventually he gave up and he became a Lutheran. Wonderful story. But no, Mr. Edward was not satisfied there. He said, you know, in our Lutheran church, out of those 40 pastors, only one of them is from my tribe. I am going to go be a pastor so that I can bring back the truth of Jesus Christ and this good news to my tribe. A wonderful dissatisfaction, isn't it? A wonderful unsatisfied feeling of, I have it good in the Lord, and I want others to know about this too. That's the sort of dissatisfaction you have too. This is your mission statement from your website, at least part of it. St. Paul's Evangelical Church exists to make disciples of Jesus Christ, the only Savior from sin and death, to grow and mature as disciples, to seize every opportunity to proclaim the gospel, to support missions and worker training. You are focused on that widening ripple effect, and that's good. So are we, the mission, your mission in Africa. Our team is called the One Africa Team of missionaries in Africa, and our passion is Christ for all, great news for Africa. I love that slogan. That's what I'm the leader of the team, and I keep on talking about that to my team members. This is why we're here, and Christ for all, great news for Africa. Well, what is the One Africa Team? Simply put, we are the WELS mission in Africa. A couple of years ago, we reorganized. The red countries are the countries where the blue countries, no. The red countries are where we had a relationship, and instead of being divided by fields, we said, let's be one team. Instead of having a Malawi mission and a Zambia mission, let's have one team and collaborate. So who is on that team? Well, I serve as the One Africa Team leader, and with me is a leadership group who works on outreach and operations and communications. And we have three other missionaries who work on theological education, teaching men to become pastors, and others who work on teaching men who are already pastors, workshops for them, and so on. So our team is these many, 10 men plus one man, John Bear, from the Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary, and we work mostly on theological education. Now that's a change from the past. If you look back to the early days, 1963, our missionaries would have been going out and evangelizing, drawing in people, and gathering them into groups of believers. Well, those groups grew and multiplied, and they became a synod. At first, the missionaries helped to fill the roles, but then the synods grew. For example, Malawi Synod grew by great leaps and bounds. And now we, as the WELS One Africa team, we stand on the side as a support. For example, the Malawi Synod right now has a big vision of expanding their home missions in the country, and they need some funds to do it, and we, the One Africa team, are going to help with that effort. On the side of training pastors, the synods grew, and they saw a great need for pastors. Missionaries bought land long ago and built the school where I teach in 1980. They built that school. At first, only missionaries would have taught at that school, but now we have Malawian brothers taking over. Just now I'm working with one of these men to completely take over the biblical Greek teaching I do. He'll take over a year from now. So our sister synods in Africa have grown and matured, and so our focus as the WELS One Africa team has changed in response. Our focus now, yes, we have that same passion, Christ for all, great news for Africa, but we are focusing on the best way we can do that, which is through others. We are patently not the best people to go and evangelize and serve as pastors of congregations. I mean, I did that for 10 years. I drove out to congregations and I preached and I taught and I confirmed and baptized and more babies than I can remember, and gave communion to thousands of people. And that's good. I was needed in that role for a while, but a Malawian pastor will be much better in that role every time. So what can we do as WELS? We think we can best build the kingdom of God by supporting and strengthening pastors, African pastors, to take that gospel forward. Our contribution to that ripple effect is to make those pastors just full with the gospel, so they make a bigger splash in the water. In our sister synods, Zambia Synod and Malawi Synod, we're probably doing that better. There are tens of thousands of members there and about 80 pastors. We want to do more in Cameroon, where there are about 1,000 members and 8 pastors. And in Nigeria, where there are 2 synods, Christ the King and All Saints, and there are about 8,000 members in those synods and about 20 pastors. Unfortunately, both in Nigeria and Cameroon, there in the West, there's been so much unrest in the countries that we're not allowed to travel in the country, so we're frustrated by that. We have a new synod we're working with. There's about 500 members there and 1 pastor in Ethiopia. And this summer, WELS will declare fellowship with another new synod in Kenya. These 2 new synods, Ethiopia and Kenya, were drawn to us because of our stand on the truth and focus on the gospel. The same thing happened in some new areas, such as Uganda and Rwanda. John Holtz, John Hartman, and Pastor Pembereka from Malawi just made a trip there for 3 weeks, teaching and visiting some congregations and some pastors who want to a partnership with us and want to get training from WELS. In Liberia, it happened a little different, our connection. There are 2 Liberians living in the United States who became WELS members and wanted to go back to Liberia and bring this better understanding of the gospel back to their churches there. And there are 2 large groups we're working with there. Now, I don't know what the future could bring for our work on your behalf in Africa, but Africa is a very, very big place. You realize you could fit the United States, India, and China within the, at least the 48, within the boundaries of the continent. And the population is growing far more than other areas of the world. There are many groups, many churches and pastors in Africa who are completely disillusioned with the partnerships that they have with liberal Lutheran, liberal other churches in Europe and the United States, and they are drawn to WELS. Why? Because we have an understanding of how Jesus has saved us, and we don't mix it up with other things. So we are WELS. WELS is well positioned to respond to that with the gospel. The world needs the gospel, and WELS has it on offer. But it's daunting. How are we going to do this all together? Well, we respond this way. You start where you can, you and your Lord, making sure that you are strong in faith in Him. And strengthen your faith community. Share with one another. Rely on that faith community. And then you will be motivated to share that faith with others. I don't have to preach to you and direct you how to take Christ to others. You will find ways, because you will be so full of the gospel that you want that gospel to go out to others. The ripple effect of faith is a blessing to us all. Let's make use of it. Amen.